Hello YouTube, it's Slate Warrior here with another pre-discussion video news segment, and even though I keep telling you guys that I'm not going to be a news channel, I think a pretty important thing has just been announced for the OCG, and that is the next set after Duelist Alliance. It is going to be called the Next Challengers, and it is going to contain 90 cards with 5 cards per pack. It is going to be the second set in the Arc V/Arc 5 era, and that 5 card thing gets me wondering, is this set even going to come to the TCG? There hasn't been anything announced yet. I don't know if it's going to be an OCG exclusive set, but it is said to contain all new Synchro, Ritual, Fusion, Xyz, and Pendulum monsters, and it's going to be released in July of 2014. Alright, thank you and enjoy this discussion. Alright YouTube, I have another discussion here about 4 cards that are coming out in the Duelist Advent/Alliance, and the reason I'm doing more today is because there are other things that are coming from you that I'd like to discuss, so I'm going to be getting rid of the last couple cards that I want to be discussing in, a little bit longer videos. Basically, I have 4 cards to talk about today. That'll be this one, this one, this one, and this one. Alright, and I'm going to start out here with Chain Dispel, which says, when a spell trap card is activated, destroy all cards in its controller's deck with the same name as the activated card. I'm sorry. Okay, so what this could be useful for is getting rid of cards that you don't want to see later in the game, like MST, or, other cards that are at 3 that are played a lot. Cards such as Pot of Duality, and I know you're thinking, Pot of Duality, oh, well, that just kind of, thins their deck, doesn't it? But it also, lets them get that search. It's a search. They get to choose what card they want to add to their hand, so maybe you want to use in Pot of Duality. And I don't think this card, Chain Dispel, is going to be as playable as this card over here, Chain Disappearance, which is, a little bit better in my opinion, but I think that Chain Dispel would be much better if it said, when a spell/trap card is activated, destroy it and all cards in its controller's deck with the same name as the activated card, because if you activated it on a non-continuous spell or trap, then destroying it wouldn't do any help because it's going to go to the graveyard anyway. It wouldn't negate its effect. So I'm thinking that if it did say destroy it would be really good against continuous, traps like Skill Drain. If you use it on Skill Drain and you can destroy that Skill Drain, then you're not going to be facing any more Skill Drains for the rest of the duel. If you use it on Tenki and it destroyed that Tenki, they wouldn't get their Tenki search and you wouldn't be facing any more Tenkis for the rest of the duel. So that's why I think that Chain Dispel would be good if it only said destroy it and all cards in its controller's deck with the same name as that activated card. Like I said, that's similar to this card, Chain Destruction, which says when a monster with 2,000 or less attack is summoned, target one of them, destroy all cards with that name in its controller's handed deck. And it does exactly the same thing except 2 monsters that are 2,000 or less attack. So it doesn't destroy the one on the field, but it does destroy all of them in their opponent's deck. So you use it on a card that you don't want to see later in the game, like Fire Fist Bear. It would work on Bujin Yamato. Of course, they probably have protection for the Bujin Yamato because, Bujins. Alright, next is Chain Disappearance, which is, again, another similar card to Dispel and Destruction, but it's much better in my opinion. When a monster with 1,000 or less attack is summoned, banish that monster, then your opponent banishes all cards with the same name as that card from their handed deck. This would be a side deck card. You'd use it anytime they are playing small monsters. If they're going to summon little tuners, if they're playing a synchro deck, you can get rid of those and you won't have to face them for the rest of the duel. Even, if they're playing Veiler and they're, they use it to synchro summon in game 1, you can side these in and you can get rid of that Veiler and all the rest of their Veilers in their deck so they can't possibly use them to negate your effects. But it does work from the cards in their hand as well. So, all 3 of these do that, I think. Let me see. No, Chain Dispel only works from the deck, so that makes it even worse. Alright, don't play Chain Dispel, never mind. I don't know why I discussed it. Now I'm just playing Chain Dispel's. It's okay. I thought it was interesting, though, that it's so similar to these 3 that they're kind of like continuing the series. But, yeah, see, this one destroys all the cards in the hand and deck, and yeah, hand and deck. This one just says in its controller's deck. Okay, so that's the first card, Chain Dispel. Like I said, it's coming out in the Duelist Alliance here in the TCG. Okay, next we've got Spacetime Trap Hole, which is the most recent Trap Hole trap card, normal trap. Alright, it's searchable by Traptrix Myrmeleo, just like the rest of these trap holes that we all know and love, and it reads, when your opponent special summons a monster or monsters from their hand and or extra deck, shuffle into the deck that monster or monsters that was special summoned from the hand and or the extra deck, then you lose 1,000 life points for each monster return. So if they have special summoned multiple monsters, you'll take, more multiples of 1,000 life points. But basically, I think that this card is going to be very, very good. I have been testing it, and it gets rid of those special summon monsters. It's basically a summon reactive compulse if they're using it from the extra deck, and if it's from the hand, it is a Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, so you know it's not, you don't have to discard, which is a really big plus in my opinion, even though like I said it is summon reactive and it's only special summon reactive, so you can't use it on your opponent's, you know, other types of summons. But you do lose the 1,000 life points for each, and I don't think that's a big deal. I think we pay 2,000 life points for Solemn Warning, and Solemn Warning is played in every deck, so I don't think the cost is that big a deal. It hasn't been a problem for me. And oh, actually it's not a cost, it's just the end of the effect, so sorry, I guess in Yu-Gi-Oh! We should probably not be using such terms as cost lightly. They have to be used their correct ways because this is such a technical game. Alright, and of course this is comparable to Bottomless. We all know what Bottomless does, but it doesn't banish it, of course, like Bottomless does. It shovels it into the deck, which I might even think is better. And also, this is similar to the card that Wiretap that I talked about before. Just like Wiretap, you shuffle that card into the deck. Alright, next we've got Void Trap Hole, which again is just another one of those trap hole cards. And if they special summon a monster with 2,000 or more attack, negate the effects of one of those monsters with 2,000 or more attack, and if you destroy it, I think that comparably, Bottomless is the best of these first three that I've mentioned. Spacetime is better than Void, though, in my opinion. I'm just trying to take all of the most meta trap holes. I've seen this one actually in a lot of topping decks recently, and this card was played by that Chain Gadget guy that topped a little bit ago. But in the main deck I'm talking about, this card was played in the side deck. Okay, so Void Trap Hole negates the effects of the monsters, so they won't get their summon effects off, which I think is great. But 2,000 or more attack, Lavaval Chain gets under it. A lot of other cards get under it. But, you know, this is a special summon from anywhere. This card doesn't work from special summons from the graveyard, so that's a little thing to compare them with. But like I said, I like Spacetime Trap Hole better than Void. Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare I think is a completely different type of card, as it's not summon reactive, it's effect activation reactive. So you negate the effect, and if you do destroy the card, it has to be a special summon monster. When it activates its effect, like I said, you negate it and destroy it. And this is a very useful card, but like I said, I wouldn't really compare it to this. You do destroy it, alright? You don't banish it like you do with this one. You do destroy it. These two do both destroy it. And I think that it is good in the fact that it is a surprise. If you're playing Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, when they activate that effect, they're thinking they're all safe. You know, they may be expecting a Fiendish Chain, but they might have the MST in response for that. So Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is definitely a good card, but I put it actually about the same with Void. I like both of these cards, honestly. I hate saying cards are exactly the same amount of good, so I'm going to pick one here. I'm going to have to say that Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is the better card because... Nope, never mind, I'm changing my mind. Void Trap Hole is the better card because, like I said, they both negate the effect, so I'm going to go with Void Trap Hole because it negates the effect on the summon, and Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare negates the effect later. So if they happen to not be using that effect the turn it's summoned, you know, Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is dead. Void Trap Hole, obviously, they don't have to activate their effect, it just negates their effects when it's summoned. So I'm going to say, right now, of the Trap Holes, Bottomless, Spacetime, Void, and then Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. Next I'm going to have to go with Trap Hole, which is still a good card in its own right. It stops normal or flip summons, which is the biggest downfall, but it can be any monster with 1,000 or more attacks, so it's, you know, obviously a great, you know, summon reactive card if you're playing against, like, Bujins or Monarchs, but, you know, just target the monster and destroy it. It does target, unlike the rest of these. I don't think any of the rest of them target. This one doesn't target. That one doesn't target. This one definitely doesn't target. And those, yeah, none of these four targets. That one targeting is kind of downfall. I have to put it as the 5th best trap hole card, but it can be used in multiples effectively, and all of these are searchable by Traptrix Myrmeleo. And I'd like to point out, there is, you know, the effect says unaffected by, it can search one whole normal trap card, so it can't search like Chaos Trap Hole, but it can actually search the card White Hole. Like, you guys ought to look up the card White Hole. It's kind of a funny card. I'm not gonna bore you guys with describing it, but look it up. It's interesting. Alright, so the next card that I'd like to talk about from Duelist Alliance is Resurrectome. Alright, so Resurrectome is level 1 Earth Psychic Tuner effect monster that reads, you can only use the effect of Resurrectome once per turn if this card is in your graveyard, and your opponent has at least 5 more cards in their extra deck than you have in yours. You can pay 2,000 life points, special summon this card from your graveyard. If summoned this way, it is banished when it leaves the field. So, this is a card that is a tuner. It is a card that, you know, can come back after being normal summoned. It comes back from the graveyard, and it's level 1. And I think that that is going to be really useful in synchro spam decks, in Quasar decks, and I think that it might be played, because Quasar decks can go through their extra deck really, really fast. I'd also like to quickly point out that it does say Psychic/Tuner/Effect, which I believe will be something that they are going to input in the Duelist Alliance when it comes to the TCG, because the cards right now that we have, if it was a tuner, like this one here, just says Zombie/Tuner, even though it clearly has an effect stated right here. And this here is actually the first card that I like to compare it to. So it can also be special summoned from the graveyard once, it gets banished after that. But I think the cost is a little bit less for Plaguespreader Zombie. It's way more splashable. It's a dark monster, which makes all the difference. It's level 2, which is one level higher, but you know, depending on what deck you're playing, you might not want a level 2, you might want a level 1. So basically, I think that the cost for Plaguespreader Zombie is less. You only have to return a card from your deck to the top of your, return a card from your hand to the top of your deck. Whereas this one, not only do you have to have 5 less cards in your extra deck, 5 fewer cards in your extra deck than your opponent, but you have to pay the 2,000 life points, which can be a problem at sometimes. Then it's also comparable to Spore. They're both level 1. They're both not the most meta of types, and they both special summon from the graveyard. Spore is just so good. I'm sorry, but I'd say Spore is better than Plague, even though I just recently told the entire YouTube that Plague was like my favorite monster. I said that in my Q&A video, but I'll link that actually down in the description as well. But yeah, I'd have to say Spore is probably better than both of these, but like I said, in those Quasar decks, you're going to be want to playing both of these. Also, I'd like to point out that you could also be playing this in a Monarch deck, because it's a special summonable card from the graveyard, and a lot of the Monarch cards, as of late, state that you can not have any cards in your extra deck to even activate them, or you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck while they're face up on the field. So Resurrectome could also be splashed in that. Next, I'd like to talk about this banned card, Fishborg Blaster, which was banned because of its use in heavy synchro decks, such as easily summoning a Shooting Star Dragon and multiple TG Hyper Librarians. I mean, you could get out, well, you know, it's at 1. TG Hyper Librarian is a 1 now, but you used to be able to get tons of those out with this guy because he's not once per turn. So he's banned. He's special summonable from the graveyard like the rest of these, and he's a tuner. Next is a card that I talked about in another one of my videos. I'll be linking it in the description, but it is Denominator 001, or Bunborg 001, as it was previously called when I recorded that video. And it can also be special summoned from the graveyard, except this one doesn't get banished. These two get banished after. This one can only be used once per duel. This one is completely abusable. All you have to do is discard and control a face of level 3 or lower water monster. And then the clause that was supposed to make a balance is that all the synchro material monsters must be all water, but you know how many water decks there are. There's Atlantean Mermaids was the major one that could just, you know, keep spamming out those little level 3 lower water monsters, and then you special summon him and you make, you know, your Shooting Star Dragons. Alright, so anyway, Denominator 001 can be used over and over, just like Fishborg Blaster, and it is special summonable from the graveyard, and it is a tuner, and it is level 1. But I'd have to put these, I don't know, I was putting the rest of these in order, so if I had to put these in order, I have to say Spore. No, I'm sorry, this card's banned, and it's so good. So yeah, Blaster, Fishborg Blaster for sure, then Spore, Plague, Denominator 001, and Resurrectome. So of these first 3 new cards I'd like to talk about, Spacetime, Trap Hole was the best, you know, it was the highest on my little list there. Alright, the final card I'd like to talk about is Castel the Avian Skyblaster, which is a generic rank 4 Xyz. It's a wind with 2000 attack and 1500 defense, winged beast, Xyz effect, and you can only use 1 Castel the Avian Skyblaster effect per turn, only once that turn. Which I hate it when cards say this. I really think this is a stupid clause. It's just being used on too many cards these days, where it says that you can only use 1, and then it says the name here, so you can't like get out double of it and then use that effect like twice. I don't like that. I think it should just say once per turn. I don't know. I think if a player is skilled enough to get 2 of the same card out in the same turn, they should be able to use the effect twice. Okay. Anyway, it says detach 1 Xyz material from this card, target a face-up monster, change that monster to face-down defense position, which is much like this card we all know and love, My Stroke, except this card can, you know, if it's destroyed, it's destroyed. You can't protect it by detaching like him. And detach 2 Xyz materials from this card, target 1 other face-up card, shuffle that target onto the deck, which is similar to Lightning Chidori, which says you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to target 1 face-up card your opponent controls, turn that target to the top of the deck. So this one shuffles it into the deck, this one turns to the top of the deck. But this one is not generic. 2 level 4 wind monsters, plus it has the additional effect of when it's summoned, you can target a set card your opponent, Xyz summoned, sorry. Target a set card your opponent controls, return to the bottom of the deck. So anyway, this card has 2 effects. And like I said, you can only use 1 of them, only once per turn. You detach 1 to get a My Stroke effect, detach 2, and you get a Lightning Chidori effect. My Stroke and Castel are both generic, whereas Lightning Chidori is not. You need wins. Alright, thank you for listening to this discussion. Thanks for subscribing. I mean, I hope you guys are subscribed. I don't get very many views from people that aren't subscribed. So if you aren't subscribed by some crazy chance, go ahead and subscribe now. Like this video if you enjoyed this discussion and want to see more on the Duelist Alliance cards. And, you know, go ahead and favorite this if you liked it that much. Share this video if you think that it's interesting enough for your friends, your Yu-Gi-Oh friends to see. And I will see you guys with another discussion later, YouTube.